What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the Duke Blue Devils. Of course, Duke coming off one of the most surprising seasons in all of college football last year in 2024. Last year, this team coming off a 9-4 season, 8-4 regular season record. So yeah, pretty good first-year success under Manny Diaz. I mean, obviously, we had so many question marks about him coming over to take the Duke job, especially after his success under Mike Elko. But he proved that, he can coach this Duke team. So my thoughts on this team for 2025: I think this Duke team has a chance to be pretty solid. I think they'll be solid on both sides of the football. First off, you look at the offensive side of the football. Darian Menza takes over at quarterback. Obviously, Malik Murphy went into the transfer portal, but Darian Menza, the transfer coming in from Tulane, I think he has a chance to be pretty good this next season for Duke in 2025. I like the running backs for Duke. I think this team will be really good at running the football, and I like the wide receivers that they've added in the transfer portal as well. Andrew Anthony and then Cooper Barkate. And then they also, the offensive line probably is the one thing I have concern here for the Blue Devils, but that's really about it. And then on defense, I think they'll actually be really decent on that side of the football. So I think this will be a solid/decent Duke team in 2025. Here's a look at their schedule coming up for 2025 as well. And again, this team was 9-4 last year in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this Duke Blue Devil team for 2025. They will start the season off with Elon on August the 30th. That should be a pretty easy win there for the Blue Devils. So I got them starting off 1-0 with a win over Elon. And then they play that big non-conference game in week 2 against Illinois at home on September the 6th. Pretty big non-conference game here for both of these teams. I think this game probably is going to set the tone here for the rest of the season for both of these teams. But Illinois, you look at this team and you look at the roster, a lot of production coming back on both sides of the football. I think they have the most returning production coming back in the Big Ten as well. And they got Luke Allemeyer back at quarterback, so this is definitely an experienced Illinois team. A lot of people are pretty high on this team, to be like a top 25 team, maybe even a top 15 team, and then also a playoff team. I don't want to go too far with Illinois being a playoff team, but they absolutely could have a pretty small chance of making the playoff this year. So this is going to be a pretty tough game here for the Blue Devils. I think they'll be absolutely competitive in this game. I think this will be a competitive game throughout the whole entire game. And I'm kind of expecting a dogfight here between these two teams, but I did pick Illinois to win this game. I already done my Illinois video from a long time ago. I think that was last month or so. So yeah, I did pick Illinois to win this game just because of the experience of their roster. And I do trust Luke Allemeyer at quarterback, definitely, more than Darian Menza. Again, I think Duke does make this a close game. It does come down to the wire. Maybe a turnover probably is the difference though, but I got to go with Illinois to get this win. So I'm going Fighting Illini to get this win, even though Duke is at home. So that's Duke's first loss of the season, and they got them at 1-1 now. And then they play Tulane on the road after that. I think they win this game. It probably will be a pretty tough game though for the most part in the first part of the game. And then how about this? Darian Menza taking on his former team at Tulane. Yeah, that'll be interesting, to see the former Tulane quarterback here going up against his former team. So yeah, that's an interesting storyline, but I think Duke definitely is the better team. They beat Tulane here on the road. And then next game, they'll play at home against NC State. This will be their first conference game on September the 20th. NC State, I think, is going to be a little bit better this year. This should be a pretty solid NC State team, but Duke is playing at home in this one. I think this will be a competitive game for the most part. It does probably come down to the wire. It's really a game that can go either way, and it's just a tough one to call. So with that being said, I think you flip a coin here. I think home field advantage will be the difference. I'm going to say that the Blue Devils get the win here, and they improve to 3-1 on the season. After that, it's a road game against Syracuse on September the 27th. Syracuse is a team that I think will take a little bit of a step back from where they were last year. Obviously, the quarterback position is what I'm concerned about here for the Orange. Kyle McCord is a big loss at, the quarterback position because he racked up so many yards last year, and without him there, that's definitely a concern here for for this Syracuse team, and they don't really have a ton of depth as well. And I think this Duke team definitely has a ton more depth than this Syracuse team, so that is an advantage here for the Blue Devils in my opinion. And I've already done my Syracuse video, so I'm going to say that Syracuse, or actually Duke, goes on the road and beats Syracuse here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Duke did slip up in this one, but I'm going to say that the Blue Devils get the win. So a 4-1 start here for Duke in the month of September, and then they go into the month of October. They play on the road at California on October 4th, and ignore my graphic because I do have California beating Duke already, so yeah, that puts them at 4-2. So I'm going to say that they lose to Cal here. And you look at this game, California is a team that is going to be solid, pretty much across the board. They're going to have a pretty solid roster, but this game is on the road. That's the reason why I picked Duke to lose this game. Cal is a very tough place to play, plus it's out west. Some of these teams traveling out west in the ACC, that really tends to give teams some trouble, so I think that's what's going to happen in this game. So I got Duke with their second loss of the season, and again, ignore that graphic. Their record is now at 4-2, so that's why I have Duke as of right now. They get their first bye week of the season before playing at home against Georgia Tech on October the 18th. This is a Georgia Tech team, that is getting a lot of hype this year as well. I mean, offensively, I know they're going to have a pretty good offense with Haynes King coming back at quarterback, but this will also be a revenge game here for the Blue Devils because they got beat by Georgia Tech last year. I think Georgia Tech was the first team to give Duke their first loss of the season last year. So yeah, this is a big revenge game for the Blue Devils, plus they get a bye week before playing this game. This is actually a really good ideal spot for a bye week because you get time to recover after that, long stretch of games, those 6 games in a row, from August 30th to October 4th, plus the travel to California. So that really does help out Duke to prepare for this game, and I think they come out fired up. I think this is a close game. It's a low-scoring defensive game, but I think Duke playing at home does get revenge on Georgia Tech, so I'm going to say they win a close game over the Yellow Jackets. So that puts the Blue Devils now at 5-2 on the season, and then they get their second bye week. So their bye weeks are at a very strange time. They'll play Clemson coming out of the bye week, and that makes them play 5 games all in the month of November. Clemson is a team, though, I think is going to be really too dangerous here for Duke to go up against. This Clemson team has a lot of experience on both sides of the football, and Cade Klubnik is back at quarterback. Plus, this game is on the road in Death Valley. Very tough place to play. I think this is the one game where Duke is going to have a really tough time in. They're going to probably not score a bunch of points in this game. So I think Clemson gets the win fairly easily, and that does drop, Duke to 5-3. But then they bounce back and beat UConn here on the road on November 8th. So they have a couple of games on the road against Group of 5 teams on this schedule, which is very interesting. After that, it's a home game, though, against Virginia on November 15th. I don't really expect Virginia to be all that great this year. Maybe they make this a close game for quite a while against the Blue Devils. Maybe it's a slow start here for the Blue Devils, but still, Duke is the better team. So I think Duke does take care of business against Virginia, and that puts their record at 7-3. And then they play on the road at North Carolina on November 22nd. Oh boy, this is going to be a huge game. Probably one of the biggest North Carolina versus Duke matchups in football that we've had in, quite some time. There's been some good matchups in the past, but with Bill Belichick coming in at North Carolina, you kind of expect this rivalry to really heat up, because of him coming there. And Manny Diaz has already had a good first year, so this rivalry really should start to heat up with both of these coaches, taking over these programs. So, yeah, this is a tough one to call. I kind of been back and forth on this game. I feel like Duke definitely has a lot more depth than North Carolina does, but, North Carolina's going to have some faces that are ready to step up. And I think in the month of November, they're ready to, they're kind of like better by this time. So yeah, that's definitely kind of a disadvantage, because if Duke was definitely going to be playing North Carolina in the month of September or even in the month of October, I probably would pick the Blue Devils to win this game, but I'm actually going to go with the Tar Heels just because they're playing at home, and plus it's in the month of November. So I think North Carolina comes in fired up, and I think they give Duke their 4th loss of the season. So I got the Blue Devils losing a close game on the road at North Carolina before closing things out at home against Wake Forest on November 29th. You know, this is a Wake Forest team kind of like similar to Virginia. They're kind of not the same program as they used to be, and Wake Forest just hasn't really been all that great in the last few years or so, maybe the last couple years if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Wake Forest is a team that I don't think is going to be really that great either. I don't think the roster is bad for them. I mean, they still probably got playmakers, but still, Duke is the better team. They should bounce back after the loss to North Carolina. So I think Duke wins this game to close out the season. So I got the Blue Devils finishing 8-4 in 2025. That's not the same record that I had them last year predicting, but it's the same record that they had in the regular season in real life at 8-4. I could definitely see this, Duke team probably, going 8-4 or 7-5. I think those are the most likely records here for the Blue Devils. If they were able to go 9-3, that would definitely be an improvement from where they were last year. If they were somehow to beat Illinois, I think that would not really shock me at all. If they somehow beat California on the road, that definitely will be a big win for them. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did lose to Georgia Tech at home. So yeah, these games right here, they could possibly, win some, and then they could probably slip up somewhere else. But I think 8-4, 7-5, maybe the most likely records here for the Blue Devils for 2025. But I got this team finishing 8-4. So that's my prediction here for the Blue Devils. Do you guys agree or disagree with this prediction? And give me your prediction for the Blue Devils down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.